I'm going to open up the Littleton Conservation Commission meeting of July 23rd, 2024. Um, Unlike most Conservation Commission meetings, it started at 7:30. We decided to start this one at 7 so we could spend a half an hour with SVT. And so, Amy, I'll ask you to sort of introduce the folks from the SVT, and then at 7:30, we'll pick up the administrative agenda and go from there.
And I'm going to turn right around and introduce Mike Perrin, who's got the floor and the screen.
Awesome. Hey, everyone. Again, my name is Mike Perrin. Thanks so much for having me. I am the Conservation Associate with the Sudbury Valley Trustees. With me is Meredith Houghton, who I'll let introduce herself in 1 second. But tonight, I'll be talking to you all about our new land protection prioritization tools that you can find on our website and how you can utilize those in your work as the Conservation Commission.
Mike, if it's okay if I interrupt you real quick, I see we have one attendee who's not on the panel. I want to make sure folks know that we want to make this as open and stuff as possible. So feel free to raise your hand electronically if you have questions. Thanks. Go ahead, Mike. Floor's yours again.
Yeah, no, thank you. Meredith?
Yeah, I'll just introduce myself as well. Meredith Houghton, Senior Land Protection Specialist at Sudbury Valley Trustees, on the same team as Mike. Really here tonight just to support Mike. He's been doing this good work of sharing this wonderful tool we have across our service area. I know Amy has seen it and a few others in town, but we wanted to make sure all of you know what we have available to you. And I'm really just kind of here as a support for anything that might come out of, ideas generated from today and opportunities this tool brings. Nice to meet you all. Thanks for having us.
Awesome. Thanks, Meredith. Can folks see my screen all right? And then I'll go full screen. Great.
Yep.
And just before we do that, just for folks who may not be familiar with the Sudbury Valley Trustees, or SVT for short, we are a regional land trust that conducts land protection and stewardship between Worcester and Boston. We work in 36 communities. So tonight I'll be showing you how we were utilizing some of our existing resources to help us in our land prioritization throughout the entire region. So our goals here were to update our land protection priorities to guide our organization and our partners throughout our service area, include more about climate planning in these existing data sources that I was talking about before, and to better plan for equity in our work and to take a more collaborative approach. So SVT really saw an opportunity with the mass amounts of data that is out there available to the public. I'm sure folks are familiar with Mass Mapper. Mass Mapper is a great resource full of tons of databases. So SVT really saw an opportunity to look throughout the entire service area and conduct land prioritization analysis and then bring it to their partners to take a collaborative approach to land protection. So before we jump into the methodology and how we did this, SVT was awarded funding through the Wild and Scenic River Stewardship Council, as well as the Land Trust Alliance, or LTA. And our systems are housed by the University of Tennessee.
Mike, sorry to interrupt you. We can see, oh, there you are. I was going to say, we could only see that first slide, and I didn't know if we're maybe seeing your other screen or just not the presenter view.
Interesting. So
right now we see Suasco Regional Prioritization Plan slide, but we're not in presenter mode. So I wanted to see if you were advancing in a different way.
I was. Shoot. So how about now? What do you see now?
Natural services.
Great. And if I share that, do you see natural services now?
It's not in presenter mode, but we see natural services and then the slides along the left side.
Strange, because I'm moving it around quite a bit. Let me just try to reshare my screen. Apologies, folks.
If you
Yeah.
hit
No worries, Mike.
slideshow,
Great when it works, right?
go to slideshow, you might be better off.
Yeah, I'll try slideshow. You're saying? Let's see.
Yeah. It's the fourth one or fifth one over there. On the menu bar. There you go. Two more. There you go.
Then from the
Yeah.
beginning, maybe.
From the beginning.
So what are folks seeing now?
So I think, Mike, it's not sharing your presenter screen. We're still just seeing.
Understood.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you just toggle from here, Mike, instead of advancing the other way,
That's
that might
what
be
I'll
an
do.
easy way to.
Great. Awesome. Thanks, Meredith. Sorry about that, folks.
No worries.
Yep. So project funding is where we left off. This project was funded by the Wild and Scenic River Stewardship Council and the Land Trust Alliance. So SVT utilized, again, the resources we have, including the Metro West Conservation Alliance. So the Metro West Conservation Alliance, or the MCA for short, is a group of over 200 folks throughout the Suasco area, the Sudbury, Aspet, Concord River Stewardship area, or river area, apologies. And they utilized the contact lists that they had there to do a survey of these conservation professionals, which included conservation agents, conservation commissioners, such as yourselves, open space committees. And what this survey led to was 4 themes of why folks are most interested in land protection throughout the Suasco area. So these are what we call our umbrella terms and our data viewers. So each one of these themes has its own data viewer. The first one is natural services. The second one is habitat for biodiversity. The third is community conservation, which I'll explain in a little bit. And the fourth is farmland. And I did just hear someone might have had a question. No? All right. Great. So in our natural services data viewer, there are, so jumping back to this one, within these 4 different themes, our data viewers, we have different data sets. So within our natural services data viewer, we have a data set that relates to carbon storage. We have a data set that relates to connecting core habitats for biodiversity, for protection of water quality, protection of flood storage capacity. So you can look at natural services like ecosystem services, things that nature provides to us that we don't put monetary value on. The next is habitat for biodiversity. So the data sets included in this data viewer would be significant blocks of habitat, areas of uninterrupted interior forest, underrepresented natural communities, rare and endangered species habitat, and so forth. Community conservation is a little more difficult to explain. So community conservation gets at what I was talking about, one of our goals, including more equity in our work. So the data sets in community conservation look like access to existing protected land, environmental justice areas, and things like urban heat index. So within the community conservation data viewer or umbrella term, there are data sets that relate to each one of these bullets. And then in farmland, there are only 3 data sets in farmland, and they look at existing farmland throughout the Suasco area and prime farmland soils. So as a summary, there are 8 data sets in the natural services data viewer. There are 13 in habitat for biodiversity. There are 11 in community conservation, and there are 3 in farmland. This will make more sense when we jump over to the data viewer, I promise. So throughout the survey, there were questions getting at how important folks thought certain aspects of land protection were. So looking at these surveys, there were certain weights assigned to specific data sets. So for instance, the survey found that a lot of folks in the area were protecting land, thinking about carbon sequestration. So the carbon sequestration data set in the natural services data viewer receives a double weight compared to, let's say, flood mitigation. So SVT assigned scoring to features in the data set, which I will explain again in a little bit. Converted all of the data into 30 by 30 meter rasters, which is just GIS talk for saying squares. And they combined the data sets. And this is an image explaining what that slide just covered. So here in the top left corner, we have SVT agricultural priorities. This is our first data set within the farmland data viewer. So these agricultural priorities were identified by SVT, mostly based on what is existing agricultural cover. So within these 30 by 30 meter grids or rasters, if it was identified as an SVT agricultural priority, it received a 5. If it did not, it received a 0. So that's what this value is saying up here. Jumping one over, we have our agricultural land cover. Same thing. If the area identified in the map hit for agricultural land cover, it received a 5. If it did not, it received a 0. And then the last one in the top row is prime farmland soils. So prime farmland soils, there are different categories within that data set. So if there were no prime farmland soils identified in that area, it received a 0. If the area identified received, I believe it was unique soils of state unique soils of importance, it received a 3. And if it was an area designated as soils of prime state level importance, it received a 5. So 0 for nothing, 3 for unique features of soil, and 5 for statewide importance. Adding those all up, you get a value from 0 to 15 across the whole service area. So the highest possible value is 15, 5, 5, and 5. So I'm running through this a little quick, seeing that we're pushing up on time. And I just wanted to make you aware of some other resources that you can find on our website. So let me stop sharing for a minute. And come over to that. So here's the SVT homepage. You all can see that. Awesome.
Yep.
If you go to our work, story map conservation in the Suasco, you come over here to where you can find a few different resources. So the first one is a story map, and I won't jump into it right now, but it pretty much explains what I just went through with you all. If you have any questions about what I presented, feel free to email me, but you can also turn to this story map, which can be found on our website. And then there's also this process documentation report, which goes over our methodology of how we actually pulled the data viewers together, how we weighted things, how we ranked things, and where those data sets are actually from within the different umbrella term data viewers. And finally, we have our actual data viewers down here. So before we jump into that, I'm going to pop back over to the PowerPoint. So here is a look, our first look at the data viewers. Here is the community conservation data viewer for the entire area of the Suasco. So what we're looking at doesn't make too much sense. We have a rank of 0 to 60, and when you zoom in, you can see different pixels, those 30 by 30 meter rasters, rather. And then there's also a view where you can look at it on the parcel level. So zooming in a little bit, here's a look around Farm Pond in Framingham at the parcel level. So we're still in the community conservation data viewer, and it's showing a low, medium, or high ranking for each one of these parcels underneath this community conservation lens. So running all of those different data sets that are encompassing of the community conservation data viewer, they get either a ranking of 0 to 60, and then it's tiered low, medium, or high based on that average model score. And here is what's going on behind the scenes. This is what we call the raster view. So if you trace out a parcel, I'm not sure if you can see my mouse.
Yep, we can see it.
Awesome. So down here, we have a big parcel. And within that parcel, there are darker areas and lighter areas. So those lighter areas are receiving less high rankings under the community conservation data viewer, and the darker pieces are receiving a high ranking. So that can be used in your work as a conservation commission in making decisions on where certain areas might be most valuable to protect within a parcel. And folks from various planning departments have expressed interest in utilizing that as well. So I'm going to actually hop over to the data viewers.
These rankings, Mike, these are very subjective, are they not?
So they are which rankings? And let me pull up the data viewer as I'm answering that.
So it seems like someone, a particular parcel, someone might rank, say, farmland as being really high because they feel it's good. Someone else might look at it and say, that's crappy land. It's not good farmland. Right? That's really judged by the perspective of the person doing the I don't know what the right word is. Reviewing or scaling or
yeah, so we actually try to take out some of that, or almost all of that bias. So what we often say is these data viewers are just another tool in our land protection conservation tool belt. So we're really just using quantitative data. We're looking at things. Let me pull up, actually, before we jump into that, let me pull up our process documentation report, because that might help answer that. Bear with me. All right. So what we're looking at here is our process documentation report. So let's take a look at the natural services data viewer. So within that umbrella data viewer, categorized as natural services, there are these different data sets: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different data sets. So these data sets are active river area, habitat fragments, and potential carbon sequestration. We'll just use those top 3. These data sets were gathered from TNC, from Esri. You can see Mass Mapper down here. So actually the aquifers is a good one. So we pulled the aquifers data set from MassGIS. This is a data set that the state publishes, and they categorize areas as low yield for aquifers, medium yield, or high yield. So depending on where that area fell, it received that ranking. Does that make sense? So does that kind of answer your question?
You try to filter out the bias by using multiple input sources, and effectively any bias in any one doesn't overpower the bias of others. as a result,
Exactly.
they basically average out.
Yeah, yeah, and these data sets, some we pulled because we thought they were important, but also this is a big effort across the entire MCA area. So some folks said, "Hey, we think it would be really great if you incorporated environmental justice into the community conservation data layer or habitat for biodiversity." If we scroll down. Like looking at forest cores and aquatic cores and wetland cores, things like that. So, yeah,
All right.
I think yeah, great. Thank you. Good question.
And Mike, I just again getting at the methodology so I understand. So that to the extent that there is a subjective element of this, it shows up in the weighting, but that is derived from your survey of I'm going to risk putting words in your mouth. Knowledgeable people and professionals in the field. Is that fair?
Right. And just how, how people are really looking at land conservation. That's one of the reasons why the MCA was such a good audience for the survey, is because it's made up of conservation administrators. It was made up of small land trust staff, small land trust volunteers. So we had a lot of different interests providing input. And I do think that that kind of helped balance it out. But yeah, exactly like you said.
And in
Mike,
the end, sorry, I was just going to say, in the end, this is just another tool in the quiver. No one, at least it looks to me, no one should make decisions solely on what we see here, but use that either to validate other decision points or to possibly question other decision points.
Yeah, it can be really helpful. Folks have provided really good feedback about using the data viewers for grant writing. So in grant writing, they might not say the Sudbury Valley data viewers show this is a high priority. But what they'll do is they'll go into the data and they'll find out why it's ranking so high. And let's say it's because the TNC potential carbon sequestration layer. So in their grant writing, they already have hard evidence saying that, the Nature Conservancy, an internationally renowned group, has designated this area as high importance for potential for carbon sequestration. So that's one way that folks have been using it as well. Meredith?
All these data layers are specifically requested within a grant. This just has more information on top of it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I just wanted to add, a little more context to beyond the survey and the feedback received that helped with the weighting and what folks in this region were thinking about at the town level. And in each municipality, right, has maybe their own interests a little bit stronger. Certain towns may say water quality is the number one thing our residents think about. Another town may say flooding issues are the number one thing our thinking about when we want to protect land. So there's going to be sort of this natural sort of different perspectives on what we're giving you here, and that's what we invite you to do is sort of look at this for what speaks to you and sort of your town experience on the ground. But this is data, right? And it's only as good as the data sources, which, as we said, are, Mass GIS and these other high level entities. So, but what I wanted to just add, in addition to that survey and sort of the feedback we were getting from folks on the ground to help us make it a little bit more user friendly and focused, is, our GIS folks that did this analysis also looked at what other people in a different region nearby, more on North Shore, East, Greenbelt is another organization that does sort of comparable data work and thinking about priorities in their region. So we sort of also got kind of, how are other practitioners doing this type of work as well, to sort of see how that might impact the actual analysis part of it too, just to help.
Awesome.
Is this intended to filter out properties that might already have been conserved either through the conservation commissions or agriculture restrictions or what have you?
Yeah, exactly. So folks can see the screen. It's the whole town of Littleton. Yes. Awesome.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah,
no,
so-
yes.
Great. So this is the farmland and working lands data viewer. If we look, we have our town boundaries, we have Littleton, we have protected open space, which is these hashed areas. So let's see if we like scroll down to the long pond here, we can see that there's some protected areas there. Some protected areas over here. Oak Hill Conservation. So yes, that's reflected. And then each one of these, so this is the parcel view. So each one of these parcels is getting an average score. So let's click on this one that's getting a really high score. So it's telling us that it's getting an average model score of 7.5. So
Which is the
within-
Pickard farm. That makes a lot of sense. I don't know, Mike, if you pre-planned that, but you chose a good one.
The old chairman of the Conservation
Excellent.
Commission.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. Yeah. So this actually, where we clicked, received a 15. So that's the highest of high that it could have possibly got. I honestly don't know if I've clicked on a 15. So that was not staged. Just a good luck. So what we're getting shown here is the entire parcel itself is getting a rank of 7.5. And then you just said like, but where you clicked received a 15. So what we can do is we turn off the parcel view. So now we're looking at those 30 by 30 meter grids that I was talking about. So we can see that down here, right along Bruce Street and Harvard Road, there's lower conservation value under the farmland and working lands data viewer. So this is, so the area next to it received a 15. It had a 5 for agricultural priority, a 5 for land cover, and a 5 for prime farmland. And if we click up here, we have a model score of 5 because it only hit for the SVT agricultural priority, not the existing land cover and not the prime farmland soils. That's just one example of how folks can different utilize this data viewer for different reasons. So we've actually heard varied feedback from people saying this parcel view is much more helpful for us. And then we've also heard folks saying that the raster view is more helpful. So depending on your use, you might toggle back and forth between the two.
Now, Mike, I see you're
What I'm
flipping.
going to do in the meantime, yeah, sorry. Go for it.
Looks like you've got 4 different systems set up, each for habitat, farmlands, natural services, and conservation. Do you have a layer that aggregates all of those, or are they intended to live independent from one another?
Yeah, so that's one of the things, that's one of our minor edits that we're working on right now. So you really hit one of our biggest kind of challenges with this data viewer, where folks aren't able to toggle nearly easy enough between the data viewers. So exactly like you said, there are 4 different individual links on our website. There's no way to view them at the same time. So what we're working with our contractors right now. Excuse me. And what we're doing is, if we go back to my shared screen, where we see Habitat for Biodiversity here, it's highlighted. Right next to it will be community conservation. Next to that one will be natural services. Next to that one will be prime farmland. And what you'll be able to do is click on them, and the extent of the map will stay the same, if that makes sense.
So you make each of them a layer into the map so that if you want to show all 4 layers, you can do so.
Yeah, exactly. And it's they'll still be kind of separate entities, but you'll have the same seamless view, if that makes sense. Switching between the viewers.
Like in the old days when we used to have.
So I pulled up
STs and stuff
farmland.
like that.
Yeah.
I actually know what you're referencing. So yes, like that. Yeah. So for my purposes, I've checked this box. I just wanted to let you know that this is a huge data. This is a big undertaking. It takes a while for this to load sometimes, and that's why I picked farmland first, is because there wasn't a whole lot of data that was being run in the backgrounds. So you'll actually see this pop up when you first go into the data viewer. And I see that we're a little over time, so I do apologize, but I just wanted to show the same thing with the same parcel. So we can turn that parcel view off and we can see where different areas are ranking higher for conservation value. So this one, forest cores, underrepresented settings. Let's see what else. And climate flow. And then down by the road where it's lighter, it's actually receiving a 0. So that's just an example of what's going on and how you can use the different data viewers to look at the same parcel. So I apologize. I definitely ran through that much faster than I normally do.
Okay.
So please feel free to reach out with any questions. I know some folks on your team have already seen this presentation as well, so they might be able to lend a hand in how it might apply to your work.
Yeah, I think we've got some studying to do here, Mike. Let me, if you don't mind, if I keep you for just 2 more minutes, I want to see if any commissioners
Absolutely.
have questions before we sort of move on. Let me be clear, commissioners or attendees certainly just use the Zoom raise your hand feature if you have questions.
So I don't have any questions, but I'd certainly like to thank Mike and Meredith for this huge undertaking and sharing it with us. Some of us have seen it before, and I know it's hard to digest all this in such a short period of time, but it's an exciting program, and also happy to have version 1, but looking forward to version 2 as well.
Yeah. Thanks, Sarah.
Is it open source or is it subscription based?
It's completely free, so anyone can view it. Totally free source. Yeah.
Mike, hypothetically, if let's say we were doing an exercise with the town and maybe we wanted to reflect the town's priorities by adding and subtracting, right? Subtracting certain layers, adding gets harder. Is there a way we could potentially consider working with SVT and say, yeah, carbon sequestration is great, but it doesn't get a 2 weight, but flood protection, that gets a 5 weight in Littleton, and
Right.
sort of work with you all to come up with a more Littleton specific consideration. And you don't have to answer that right now, but I think it's something that could be interesting if it was a possibility.
Yeah, absolutely. That is, you hit our 2 biggest points of feedback that we've gotten from doing these meetings, and we've met with a few towns at this point. So that is something that we're really trying to think about so our initial goal with these data viewers are, how can we bring a tool to the entire region? How can we get a synopsis of the entire region? And now what we're realizing is this is useful for folks, but there is a tremendous need for looking more locally and incorporating these more human aspects of land protection. So that is something we're exploring, and how we might be able to bring that to different town folks. But I'm happy to, Dan Stimson, if you know him, he's our GIS guy on our staff, and he often does work for towns. So if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to connect you with him, and he might be able to make some maps for you.
Yeah, Mike, don't take that question as anything more than just trying to refine what already appears to be a really well thought out and excellent tool.
Yeah, we actually, I got really excited. There's a community nearby Littleton that I met with yesterday who shared their version of their town land prioritization data viewers, and it just really got my wheels turning. So I appreciate the feedback, and we're definitely getting, or I'll say I'm getting excited on my end, trying to think about how we can bring that to you all. Meredith, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think Chase is getting at sort of one way towns are thinking about how might they use this data for their own specific needs. And I think Sarah and Amy have already heard us kind of talking a little bit more about possibilities. But just to reiterate, Mike mentioned that if you have a priority parcel that you're working to protect and you're trying to secure funding, grant writing, this is just another tool in the toolbox. There's all these maps, available, some of these online viewers. This kind of condenses it in a different way, tells a story, has some different data sets available into these 4 different viewers. So it can just provide a data-driven sort of motivation behind what you're working on at the town level to really communicate that in a different way. So that's one way to use this. If you're working, I believe you guys have just wrapped up or are very close to wrapping up your open space and recreation planning update. So a lot of towns who are embarking on that process, trying to kind of look a little bit differently at priorities they've had in the past and, kind of with a fresh lens, different data set, make, kind of vetting what they thought their priorities have been, their top 10, top 20 priorities for what they hope to protect. So this is just another tool to help with that type of thinking. And being proactive into the future of what you're trying to work on. And then there's sort of the other side of this, which is, on the ground, helping see different parcels maybe in a different way that you hadn't realized, like, oh, wow, that's not really something that was on our radar, that we do want to be proactive and maybe see about the possibility of working with a landowner or neighborhood on protection, and trying to get ahead of it, which I know we all try to do to the best of our ability, but we get busy and it's, this just kind of helps a little bit more with that proactive thinking is our hope. So, that's just a couple of applications, of how folks might use this data. And, we're here as a resource to, once you click around, we encourage you, please click around in the resources that Mike sent you off our webpage. There's a bunch of different links to show you that data that put this together, the story map that kind of goes through what we did, and then the viewers themselves. It's a lot more fun if you kind of go to an area well and then click around and see what you think about it. So we're here as a resource. And we're here as a resource after that, as, if there's projects you're working on and we can be a partner on that, we want to do this good work too. So wherever we can be a support, we welcome that.
SVT has been an incredible partner to the town of Littleton in recent history. So thank you, not just for this, but for everything that you've done to help us move things forward here. I do think we probably need to move on unless there are any questions to open up the rest of our agenda, though. Mike, Meredith, thank you so much.
Thank you all so much. It's great to meet you. Good to see some of you again, and hope to see y'all soon.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Sarah, you made it. It's your meeting.
I did. It was good. It was protecting and promoting farmland, and it was focused from the American Farmland Trust. So it had a lot of agencies represented, and once the slide deck is shared, I'll share that with everyone. It was I had to jump off early, but it was well attended and well presented for sure. So I see that it is 7:40. Chase, should we carry on with the next part of the meeting?
Yep.
You want to do it, or do you want me to?
I want you to do it 100%. There's no doubt in my mind on this.
All right, cool. So welcome everyone, and we're here on our other portion. Thank you for being patient, but as you can see, we've had some exciting discussions with the SVT. So they're on our agenda, we are here to approve the minutes from July 9th, 2024. I'd like to hold those over to the next meeting because there have been recent edits in the draft with the commission's permission to do so. Amy, you good with that?
Yeah, sorry about that. Yes, I'm good with that.
Perfect, no worries. Does anyone have anything that they'd like to add to administrative discussions on this list that's here?
I would like to add a site walk at 2 Boathouse Way next week, and I can get into that later.
Okay, I will add that, and then I just have one on Nagog Orchard. So with the timing, I'd like to go ahead and try and peck away at a few of these. Starting enforcement order 30 Warren Street, unpermitted construction of a walkway within the buffer zone and walk in the rear yard. Any update on that, Amy?
Casey's stepmom died over the weekend, so he is not ready to come in, and that's who was moving into the house.
Okay.
But he and Chuck think they will have something by August 6th. So I
Okay.
said,
All right. So we'll carry that on to the next. Next is continued discussion enforcement order 15 Powers Road. The larger discussion.
I don't think there's anybody here for that. I don't know. I only recognize or don't recognize in the audience Dave P. So I don't think there's anybody here for that. So if you want to bump that to the end, we can do that.
Okay. Let's go ahead. Request for certificate of compliance 9 Air Road, Mass DEP number 204-0858 U43-3.
Seth Donahoe's here and I'm promoting him and Brian.
Howdy.
Yeah, so just for a quick summary, they're in for the certificate of compliance. I believe the site is stable. Third-party review has been through it and concurs. And frankly, I believe the main issue is how the commission feels about monitoring of the plantings that have been installed. The order of conditions did require a 2-year monitoring period, and it's been a year, just short of a year.
Okay. Seth, prior to you jumping in to answer any questions, commissioners, this is an important discussion. Historically, we have not, to my knowledge, done shorter certificates for that. What are the commission's thoughts on amending from 2 years to 1 for a growing season?
I guess, sir, I'm strictly opposed to it. I would like to understand the applicant's basis. Why are we asking for this before we've completed it?
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions before we jump in? Okay. Seth, go ahead. Thank you. If you could introduce yourself.
Definitely. So I am Seth Donahoe with Dillison Roy Civil Design Group. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant, Brian Carlson. As you have read in, this is a request for a certificate of compliance for the project at 9 Air Road. The wetland is actually across the street on the opposite side of Air Road. And the project, subject to the commission's purview, was the construction of some grading, some stormwater management basins, and on the flanks of that was a substantial planting area. And Mr. Carlson has indeed completed those, and the plantings that are installed are certainly larger than what are usually put in place. Many of these trees are in the 6 to 7 foot height category and 2-inch or better caliper. And the reason we're here before you are requesting this is because I'm happy to report I was actually at the site this afternoon, and the plantings have achieved 100% survival rate. There was no loss over the winter. That includes the shrubs that were there as well. I do have some pictures if any of the commission members would like me to share my screen and just have a quick oversight of that area.
I think that would be great. Go ahead, Seth.
All right, hopefully before you is the site, which I believe you are all familiar with. There was a mix of deciduous and conifer trees, spruce and pine most notably. They're very evident in this photograph. All of them have very good survivability, no browning, no failing at all. And you can see some viburnum shrubs sprinkled in between. This photo doesn't catch it, but the banks of the basin actually have some junipers as well. So there's a mix of evergreen and deciduous vegetation throughout this. At the upper ends are some ornamental pear trees, which are very tall and also in very, very good shape. As I mentioned, everything has survived, and we feel that it's be warranted to issue certificate of compliance at this point, and that there's no signs of anything changing on the site at this point, and they have survived their winter.
Seth, can you give me a timeline? When were those originally planted?
Late last
Roughly,
year.
I don't need the date.
Late last year.
Is there a reason
During a wet season.
that they did find up till now? Is there a different reason other than just wanting to close this out to ask for an early closing?
Everything has been done. I mean, ideally, there's a couple erosion control barriers that are still in place. They'd like to remove all of those, and all the lots have been conveyed at this point. So there's new owners. The builder would like to essentially allow everybody to have a clean title related to this.
I think Chase brought up a good question of when they were planted and we were obviously in a wet season. Now we've gone into a dry. I'm not sure what the soils are there. I'm happy to try and entertain something like a partial certificate, but I'm very proud that you all had 100% success rate. That's unheard of. But I am cautioned to do that prior to the 2 years. There's many monitoring that we go out for 3 years. But I defer to the commission.
Sarah, that's kind of why I asked, because at this point they haven't even seen a summer, and I appreciate that the winter could be challenging for them, but as could, July, August, September, and I guess I'm just not inclined to issue a certificate of compliance here. If the only purpose is a clean title, that I don't find it compelling.
Well, it's a clean title, and it's to pull the remaining erosion control barriers. So
Yeah.
I certainly hear the commission's opinion on this. We certainly ask your permission to pull the remaining erosion control barriers as the site is indeed stable. If the commission isn't inclined to issue the full request for certificate of compliance, we'd certainly ask you to submit a partial so that we can at least work through the progress of the punch list item, which is essentially.
Amy, it sounds like you've been more recently on site. Are you in support of a partial so that they can pull the erosion control up?
Well, I think they can pull the erosion controls up without a partial.
Okay, so we can give you, Seth, we can give you a verbal approval tonight to go ahead and remove that the certificate of compliance will stay intact in place till the end of its term. But I think what we're hearing is that you have an okay to go ahead and pull up the erosion control.
Okay. And I see the applicant's on the call. Could he have an opportunity to speak if he desires?
Sure.
And only if he desires. I'm not sure if he's willing.
Okay, with that said,
that's a no.
Yep, okay. With that said, so feel free to take up the erosion controls and
Brian
we'll see you.
Carlson's hand is up.
Okay, Brian, you are muted. If you want to unmute yourself. You're still muted, Brian.
And that's something he needs to do. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, Brian,
Yes, we
if you
can.
could introduce yourself, that would be great. Thank you.
I'm Brian Carlson, and I'm the applicant. And yeah, I guess if we can't go forward on the, getting rid of the whole certificate of compliance, what Seth has been talking about is fine with me. So, yep.
Okay, great. So feel free to go ahead and remove the erosion control. And then when the term is up, come back in for the certificate.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you.
Monitoring. So Sarah,
Thanks.
I'm sorry,
Yep.
for the monitoring period.
Yes, for the term.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, let's go ahead and do one more request for certificate of compliance 10 Ivy Mass DEP 204-0982 U12-19. Any thoughts on that?
Ivy is done, stabilized, and all set to go.
All right, do I have a motion?
I'll move to issue a certificate of compliance for 10 Ivy Mass DEP file number 2040982.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. Andrew, can you do roll call for us?
Absolutely. Roll
I like
call
your new
vote.
screensaver too.
Oh, thank you. Chase,
Chase Gerbeck, aye.
Ed,
At both sides.
Michael,
Livingston, aye.
Sarah,
Sarah Seward, aye.
Kyle,
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
and myself, aye. It's unanimous.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's go ahead and jump into, it is now 7:50. We'll go into the 7:45 public hearing notice of intent, 3 Cottage Way. We do not have a Mass DEP number, bylaw waiver required. This is the rebuilding of a gazebo And we should also talk about seasonal dock as well. Okay, who is here to present 3 Cottage Way?
Mr. Willis is here and I think he's in. If you wanna-
Jim, you're muted, just so you know. There you go.
Better.
Yep,
Okay.
perfect. Jim, if
Good.
you could introduce yourself, that would be great.
Yeah, yes, Jim Willis. We're applying for a replacement of a damaged gazebo on Fort Pond. Amy's had a look at it, and we've submitted all the forms necessary to get it done. The platform was damaged when a tree fell down last end of September, and we've been working with a contractor to get a contractor who finish off putting the gazebo back together again. It's not an enclosed structure. It's an open structure. It'd been there since the early or mid 70s. And the tree wiped out the whole top part of it. So we're just asking to replace that.
Amy, you don't happen to have a photograph, do you?
I hope
Perfect.
so. Here's the
do.
design plan. Which is probably the best.
Yeah, that's my wife's rendering of what the gazebo would look like. As I said, it's an open structure. It does have a shingle roof, and it's an 8 by 10, or sorry, a 10 by 12 platform.
Amy, if you scroll up, I think there's a photograph on PDF page 17. I just want to make sure I'm looking at the gazebo we're talking about, sir.
That's
Is
the old gazebo, yeah.
right there. Okay.
Yep. So the base, the platform is still intact, correct?
Exactly. The tree fell on the top of the roof, right across the roof, and it collapsed everything down to the tree line, but the flooring actually survived.
Yeah. Looks like you'll get some good exercise going up and down there with the new timber.
You do, yes. But, you have to be real careful when you're carrying wines. Except for that, you're okay.
Okay. So this would be the second time we've had someone come in under the new ask for seasonal dock. Do we want to talk to that with this applicant?
Yeah, and actually, I would say I also misspoke because Parks and Rec, Tim reminded me, was the first to come in.
Okay. Yep, that's right.
So this will be the third time. So it occurred to me a little late in the game that the Willises also have a seasonal dock. The picture of which just went off my screen and I'm having a hard time getting it back in again, but it's basically just 2 sections that go straight out and then a floating dock. So what I think would make sense is, especially since you can't close tonight anyway, because there's no DEP file number, is get that added in to the notice of intent, if you're all amenable, and then it can get permitted and squared away.
I'm fine with that. Mr. Willis, have you been able to remove the damaged structure or timbers
Yes.
yet? Okay.
Yeah, the tree, we removed that straight away. We got that done in the fall, but then we had to wait for the contractor to come in because once the winter sets in, there's no room to work down there. So we had to wait till spring. And then the first contractor, he said he would do it. And then he backed out because he's got too much work someplace else. So we have a new one. He's agreed to go ahead and proceed with this. The damaged part of the structure itself was taken away. We got rid of all the shingles and stuff properly, and everything else is out of the way. It's ready for the construction to begin.
Mr. Willis, quick question here. In terms of the construction, are we talking about a new foundation? Are we putting anything in the ground, or is this just from ground level up using the existing?
The existing structure sits on a granite outcropping, so we have to lift some of the boards off the walking structure that's there now. We have to lift those boards up and put them back in place, and those things will be attached to the framework that comes out that exists on the structure now.
Okay. And what we're proposing to replace it with is the same dimensions as what was there?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
We had actually closed in one end of it because when you face the water, there were 2 benches side by side and an open structure. We're going to just put a board, a close-in structure. There'll be 3 seats rather than 2.
Okay, but same footprint, right?
Yeah, same footprint.
Amy, thoughts of timeline for a DEP number?
A bunch did come through, so I'm optimistic. How's that? But I'm actually hoping by August 6th, by the next meeting.
Okay. So, Mr. Willis, we unfortunately can't close this evening without a mass DEP number. So I know you may have a contractor lined up, but we would ask that is put on hold until the next meeting, and fingers crossed that you do have the DEP number by then. And that's 2 weeks from
What's
now.
the next, when is
August
the next
6th.
meeting? Oh, that should be fine. The contractors, like most contractors, he's scheduled out until early September from what I can tell.
Okay. So with your support, we would continue this. And Amy, you'll help Mr. Willis with the filing for the seasonal dock permit?
Yep.
Okay, great. So we will see you again, hopefully with a mass DEP number on August 6th.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Sure.
Okay, we have 3 minutes, so let's just go back to administrative discussions. Let's go ahead and get the continued discussion on the enforcement order of 15 Powers Road.
So, where are we on that? I did contact DEP as well as town council on that. DEP, not too surprisingly, doesn't have the manpower to do too much. But they did say they would call and urge him to cooperate. And Kim over at DEP did that. But the owner didn't pick up the phone, so she left a message to that effect. Town council has been working with myself and Tim on getting the ticketing squared away. So what we've landed on right now, and Tim was spent the afternoon writing tickets, is that there's 2 actions that can go into the ticketing for the fines. One is lack of compliance with the enforcement order, because the enforcement order required at a minimum that they come to the July 9th meeting and or contact me. So that wasn't done. So the ticketing is starting in that case for July 10th. The other ticketable action is the actual work itself in the buffer zone, 50 foot, and possibly in the BVW. Because we can only look back 15 days, according to town council, to start the ticketing. We're going to start that on tomorrow's date also. So every day is 2 new tickets. The first tickets are 25, the second tickets are 100, and the third and from there is 300. So if you add up 15 days worth of that, that's almost $6,000 in fines. So once we got to handwrite them all out, and then once we get those done, we will continue to, if the commission wants to issue 2 tickets every day after the 10th. And then they need to go to air to the court. They need to go to the police department. They need to go upstairs to the clerk, as well as obviously the owner.
Amy, can you walk us through the delivery of those notifications? So once Tim creates those tickets, how do they leave your hands or his hands, and where do they go from there?
So this is the ticket book, and there's color copies. And let's see, the white one goes to the owner, the yellow one, the pink one goes to the court, the yellow copy goes to the police, the gold stays with me. And then I make extra copies to go up to town clerk and the rest of it. So we can either, we will mail them to the owner. And then I got to talk to the police department tomorrow, because town council will talk to the air court just to see what they expect, because it's a little bit different. And they said they do not have to be hand delivered to the court every day. Thank God. They go in a pack probably at the end of each week. And they also said down there that the police are hand delivering tickets to the court all the time, and that the police can also do the delivery. So I just need to coordinate that with the police department. Otherwise, if we do this every week, Tim or I can just drive them down. It's in air. It's not a heavy lift.
And so they're going certified mail from our office to the owner.
I'm going to send them certified mail. I expect those probably to be rejected again. I also sent it first class mail, and there's actually a co-owner. Excuse me. So I'll be sending a copy to the co-owner at the same time.
A lot of work. Okay. Just out of question, where does the fine money go? Collected.
I was just trying to figure that out in Acton. I'm not sure. I think it's a different process every time. So I'm not sure if it goes into the general fund or into the wetlands fund.
Okay. Commissioners, any question? Do we follow this track that Amy and Tim are on?
Say yes. Does it put a lien on his property then? The fines, does that become a lien on the property? Or does it become, you know, what's to stop him from just?
A town or two has done that. Some attorneys on a call that was just last week on ticketing was a little appalled by that.
Appalled by what? Putting a lien on the property?
By putting a lien on the property, yeah. But their town council, worked with it. When they get the ticket, they have 21 days to either pay the fine or contest it. And if they don't do either, it could become a criminal complaint. This is a non-criminal complaint.
So each ticket has a window of 21 days.
Yes. So this first set is going to be the same 21 days, and then it's going to be rolling after that. From what I hear is the air, and Andrew might know more about this than I do. The clerk magistrate is going to take all these things and put them in a file and probably not track them unless they get, the payment comes through. In which case it would probably be up to us if after 21, 30 days, whatever, if we haven't been paid, talk to town council about going to court.
The thing is with this, for me, I don't actually care if we get paid. It's a tool to actually resolve the Wetlands Protection Act issue, right? So it's unfortunate that we've had to get to a place where hopefully this gets the property owner's attention. But at the end of the day, if we found a way to resolve this, but also forgive the fines, maybe less what it's cost the town to deal with all this nonsense, that would be more or less an acceptable resolution. But doesn't seem like we've heard anything from the property owner, right?
No, and frankly, that's where I was hoping to stay with the first two notices of potential violation that I sent is let's get in, let's talk about it, and let's get this resolved. But it's just become a thing.
Yep. And I think go ahead, Ed.
I wasn't observing about, wanting the money per se. What I was looking at is, okay, so we give him fines, big hairy deal. If there's no ramification to him, then he can ignore them. If the air clerk is going to put them in the folder and say, okay, that's nice. Littleton, you did your paperwork. Yeah. That's what I'm looking at. What?
I think at the end of the day, Amy and Tim's time is very valuable though. So this is,
if they choose to ignore the tickets and they don't either pay it or ask for a court date, then after the 21 days or whatever we think is reasonable, we ask for the court date.
Right. Yep. We've been through this before. So
yeah. Okay. Well, forgive me, but I haven't. That's why.
No, and it's been a long time since I've gone through it, but okay. All right. Thank you for that. Let's go ahead. It's 8:05. Let's do the 8 o'clock, which is a continued public hearing. Notice of intent 13 Winged Cove Road. No current Mass DEP Lot U 48-16-0 bylaw waiver required. Demolition, reconstruction of existing house and associated work. Evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Good evening, members of the commission. Matt Morrow representing Kyle Mann. Mr. Mann is also here this evening. Amy, can I share my screen?
Please.
Okay, so just to verify, we do not have a DEP number currently. So obviously, regardless of the situation, that nothing can be closed. So it would have to be continued, which my client totally understands. Amy, I still owe you the request for the waiver on the dock. My apologies. I was out of town part of last week because I had a death in the family, so I'm just a little bit behind, but I will get that to you. The last I remember in looking at some of my notes here is the commission asked, and Amy, I believe you've been provided with these. Basically, different transparency showing we have the combined one that you guys already had, but you wanted existing and proposed. So what I have up on screen right now is existing condition. So what you
sent
have,
those plans to Amy on Thursday.
okay, great.
Just
So
to
what
confirm. The colored plans came today, but all the plans came on Thursday, just to confirm that.
So what you have right now is in the red is the existing single family home in the existing condition with the deck. So the existing single family home itself is 1,431 square feet. The entire structure is in the buffer zone. 53 square feet of the house itself is within the 50-foot. Gonna scroll. Hopefully the scrolling is showing and I don't have to stop my screen share.
Matt, could you give us those numbers again real quick? The quantities.
Yep. So the existing condition is the house itself is 1,431 square feet. The existing house, all within the 100-foot buffer zone. 53 square feet of the house is within 50 feet of the well. The proposed, which I'm assuming you guys see in front of you now, is 1,868 square feet in total. None of the house is within the buffer zone. The 50-foot buffer zone, I should say. 1,644 square feet of the proposed house is within the 50 to 100-foot buffer zone. The total increase on that for the structure is about 213 square feet. What you see hashed in yellow is a proposed lumen seed scenario. You have erosion protection. Here you have an existing stone patio and a walkway to the dock, which I am working on getting retro permitted. I am going to add the waiver to that. And that's, really it right now. We still don't have a DEP number. I know the commission wanted to have a good look-see at that. And Chase, just so you know, on this particular plan, the square footages that I just listed are on the bottom of the proposed conditions plan.
Yeah, I realized as I was asking you to repeat it. Sorry.
That's helpful, Matt. I appreciate you doing that. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. I just wanted to make sure you guys knew that was there because, details can be missed.
Yep.
And I wanted to perhaps, if possible, schedule a site walk with this. I know there's a lot of questions here. I know we still have time because there is no DEP number. And
so Matt,
Matt,
what I think we'd like to do is before we move on, and these plans are very helpful. Thank you for doing the two separate, so it helps us gather that. Let's open up for questions for the commission. I have a couple questions, and then we'll move on to scheduling a site walk. So let's go ahead and ask if the commission members have any questions on what they're seeing here first.
I have two. One is the stairs are still, the stairs are in the 50-foot. It's not probably very much, but it's still there. And then the other question is, last time we talked something about the stone patio coming into compliance or something, but I don't see any mention of that, of anything happening with that.
Okay. Matt, do you want to address those two?
Okay, so as far as the stairs go in the buffer zone, that's something I can examine with my client as far as the placement goes. In the 50-foot zone. that's coming off the proposed deck. I would point out if you mind if I scroll down again?
Sure.
Just didn't want to like keep having to go back and forth. So I appreciate your patience here. So you can see there's a lot of this wraparound deck that was in the 50-foot. That's being removed. So you have basically a reduction in the surface area of what was deck. You also have impervious area here in the 100-foot buffer zone. All of that's being removed in favor of, and again, forgive me for having to go back up and down, in favor of some grading and retaining wall, which would be loamed and seeded here. As far as the stone patio, my client represented at the last meeting that was an existing condition, and that has not changed. It is not proposed to be modified.
Okay, so question while we're on the patio, I think it would be helpful prior to, or even we can discuss it once we're at the site walk, is from when the house was purchased, I think was it 2016 or 17, what was there, what was amended through whatever year that was to what is now, so that way we can get a better understanding of what trees have been removed, if there's been stones changed. So if we can ask that would be the one object to bring, or narrative to bring to either to the next meeting or to the site walk or to both. That would be a request that I would make. And then I understand, Matt, what you're talking about is kind of like the give and take, but we're also still within the 50 to 100 area. So it's not like we're shifting a lot. I appreciate that some has moved from the within the 50 to further up, but you're still in that total jurisdictional package. And with that, I would ask commissioners if they have other questions.
To respond real quick, that's completely understood.
Okay.
That's completely understood.
So let's go ahead and see in terms of site walks, and I can throw these out. I know for me, next week I'm not there, but could certainly look to either August the 5th or the 6th, which is Monday or Tuesday. Also happy to see with everybody's schedules if we have to do two separate ones as well. We haven't had to do a site walk so recently, with the luxury of having more daylight. What does the commission, do we want to do something kind of like early evening, late afternoon? What are the thoughts? Or are there days that are better for everyone?
Just to let the commission know, and I'm sorry to interrupt, I'm not going to be available after the 5th until the 12th.
Okay.
If there was any way we could do it next week, I would appreciate it.
Okay.
I'm going to be away that week visiting family down south.
Yeah, I know I can't.
Unfortunately, I'm completely unavailable next week. I could certainly do something this week, Thursday or Friday, first thing in the morning, potentially. But then my schedule doesn't open up again until first thing Monday morning or first thing Tuesday morning, the 5th or 6th.
I'm wide open on Friday, so if you want to do Friday first thing in the morning, I'm good. If anybody else can.
So let's talk everybody else. Ed, Michael, Andrew, Kyle.
I can
I'm
only do
flexible.
early evening. I can't
Wait,
do in the day.
everybody's talking at once. Wait a minute.
Sorry. I can't do anything except early evening.
Okay.
Morning, day, work day, basically, I'm pretty unavailable.
Okay. Michael, yourself?
I'm flexible. Anytime's
Okay.
okay.
Great. Kyle, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I can do Friday morning.
Yeah, anytime that works for you guys, I can make myself available. So
Ed, any way you can do early morning, or does it have to be afternoon?
How early are we talking?
Well, I'm not the one that's going to be there, so you all can.
No, that's what I'm asking. I mean, because starting at about 8:30, I have meetings that take me all morning.
Right.
So
Kyle?
Unfortunately,
Ed?
Yeah, anytime. Well, anytime that works for you guys, I
Okay.
can make myself available. So you tell me,
Okay.
and I will be here.
By talking to
Great.
Kyle Maxfield.
No,
Anyway,
both.
I'm
Oh, no,
also-
okay.
I'm-
Two
I'm in the
Kyles, so
same-
it's all
There's two
good.
Kyles. Okay.
Yeah, I'm in the same
Alright,
boat.
so-
I'm very flexible Friday. So
You are or you aren't?
I am.
Okay.
I can go as early as you want or as late as you want Friday.
So Chase and Michael, it's up to you all. For this coming Friday. Rain or shine.
My 2 cents, I'm going to put something on the table, see if people balk, is we do it at like 7:30. Get right up, do it, get to work.
Perfect. It's fine for me. As long as Mr. Man is okay with that, I can do that.
Yep. Yeah, that's convenient. So
Okay, so let's go ahead. Andrew, any thoughts on that? Can you, I know you're
So
such a morning person.
yeah. So unfortunately, I would be kind of in the same position as Ed, where a late afternoon, early evening would be ideal. Be a little tricky to get out there super early, but if perhaps we could have like a follow-up site walk at some point,
Yeah,
where
so
Ed and I could.
maybe, yeah, so maybe Andrew, you and I can try and follow up for the following week or something, try and connect with Mr. Mann, where Matt's gonna be out of town.
That would be great.
Maybe Monday after the 5th, the afternoon or something, and Ed
Yeah.
can go.
Okay. All right, but Ed, do you think you can make the 7:30?
I will try to make 7:30 on Friday.
Okay. So
Sorry.
what we're gonna do is, so that'll be this Friday at 7:30 at 13 Wing Cove Road. Everybody know how to get there and parking? Okay,
I'll figure it out.
all right.
Oh, it's
Okay.
always a fun drive to Wing Cove.
Yeah, it's crazy back there, but your GPS is usually pretty good.
Okay, great. All right, and so, and with that said, we would then continue to August 6th. If there's
Sarah,
any,
before we do, I had one
Yeah.
quick question because Matt mentioned something, and I think the commission would benefit from maybe some refinement of the calculations. You mentioned, Matt, how the walkways are coming out, and what isn't clear to me in this when we talk about square footage of existing dwelling is whether or not the square footage of the deck and the walkways is incorporated in that. I think it would be useful to look at that in its totality. And if you want to break down the square footage based on structure, deck, and walkway in pre and post construction conditions, that might help us get a better understanding of the changes and, frankly, in some regard, improvement. Right.
Okay,
In
understood.
other words, you don't want to not get credit for the walkway coming out.
Understood.
okay, any other questions or comments? Okay. All right, thank you. I'm glad we can have that scheduled and look forward to seeing everyone once again on August 6th.
I will be in attendance, even though I'll be out of town because it is a Zoom, so I'll be able to
Great.
zoom in.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
See you
Okay.
Friday.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're gonna, let's see, it is 8:20. We're gonna go ahead and open the 8:15 continued public hearing notice of intent for Spec Pond Road. Still no DEP number.
Yes, it came in.
Oh, it did. Okay, so it's Mass DEP 204-1007.
Have it.
Okay, that's R 22-902, bylaw waiver required, construction of a commercial building and associated work. Anyone here? I see Mr.
Good
Brett.
evening, Commissioner.
Okay,
Seth Donahoe with Dilson Roy, Paul McManus with Ecotech, and the applicant Stephen Brightmeyer are here. We will all not speak at you
Great.
at once. We will take turns if that's all right with you.
sounds like you're starting. Go ahead, Seth.
I was queued up first because I was on with you earlier tonight, so I got the lead on this one.
Okay,
So we had been back and forth with you over the last couple meetings, and this is for the redevelopment of the former gravel pit at 4 Spectacle Pond Road. We had worked through many of the peer review comments with Green International prior to this current meeting. I believe we had satisfied all the remaining peer review requirements. There were a lot of dot the i's, cross the t's, mostly about erosion control barriers. And then at the last meeting, the commission asked us to update or clarify a couple of things. We were asked to tabulate the work in the 50-foot buffer zone. We have put that on one of the plan sheets, and I'll be happy to pull up the plan sheets after I go through a quick summary here. 62% of the work that's in the 50-foot buffer zone is strictly restoration work. So that was an area that was some snow plowing damage done by others that Mr. Breitmeyer has agreed to replace. And then there is a back corner of the site that is being restored. So 3,945 square feet of restoration or improvement on this. And it's a net improvement of over 1,571 square feet of the 50-foot buffer zone on the site. We were asked to add some specifics to the well flushing, so that detail is on the plan, specifically to note that the flushing area is to be outside of the 50-foot buffer zone, which it indeed is. And then we have a specialized dewatering detail for that as well. And then the final thing from the engineering side was to specify the sweeping of pavement areas within the O&M manual. That's been updated, so that includes spring, fall, and as required. So that is throughout the O&M manual now. As Amy was kind enough to mention, we did receive a DEP file number. That's DEP 204-1007. DEP had a couple comments as this file number was a long time coming. A lot of these things had actually already been worked out with the peer reviewer. I realize that DEP doesn't have the visibility on that, but I'll let Mr. McManus speak to some of the DEP comments if he'd like to.
Thanks, Paul McManus from Ecotech. I did prepare a letter for this, but I realized just a half an hour ago that I neglected to actually submit it. So I'll just go through this verbally and I can provide the letter for the record. Basically, the comments are from the DEP file number. Looking for tree lines to be shown on the plan. That's something that the peer reviewer had asked for. Seth did that a while back. And then, excuse me, comment if local gravel removal required restoration, essentially, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, then the project wouldn't be eligible for riverfront redevelopment. The actual gravel removal that occurred here was many decades ago. There was no, Mr. Breitmeyer told me he's not aware of and wouldn't expect any form of required remediation going back that far. Next comment, proposed work with an existing non-degraded riverfront appears to exceed 10% of the undeveloped riverfront on the property. Proposed development within any undeveloped areas must meet performance standards of 1058-4. Frankly, I don't understand this because 1058-5 begins with the language, and I'll quote, notwithstanding the provisions of 1058-4C and D, issuing authority may allow work to redevelop a previously developed riverfront area. I went through this in detail in a prior submittal. We can pull out the regs if you want, but basically 1058-5 says that where you're restoring existing degraded riverfront, you get an equivalent bite at undegraded riverfront, and it's required 1-to-1. And that's the there's some specifications for that, which I did go through in my submittal. That's the area that Seth talked about. So basically, taking an area that's closer to the stream, existing degraded area, restoring that at a greater than 1-to-1 ratio, 1-to-1's required, satisfies the provisions of 1058-5. So, as I said, I don't really know where they're coming from. I thought it was pretty clear that's what we were doing, but we've been through that with the commission. So, unless you have questions, I'm going to just kind of keep moving. The next one, somewhat similar. DEP recommends remaining degraded portions of the property be restored. again, the restoration that's being proposed exceeds the requirement under 1058.5. DEP, when Mr. Brightmeyer asked me, he said, "What does this mean?" And I said, "Well, basically, DEP is asking you to give up, the existing degraded condition on everything outside of, the actual specified project footprint." His comment to me is, well, he said, "Well, we're using that property. It's in the same fashion that it's been used for decades. Can they, can they take that from me?" And my answer was no, they can't. That they're, I think that's really a stretch. Next comment, natural heritage condition, requiring a turtle protection plan should be included. We agree. Actually, Natural Heritage issued their approval subject to that occurring. So, not only should it happen, it must happen, essentially, for Natural Heritage. So we not only expect you to include that condition, we would ask you to include that condition. And then the last comment, location 100-year floodplain, BLSF, should be shown on the plan with sufficient topo to demonstrate that the floodplain doesn't extend onto the property from adjacent parcels. Will floodplain fill be required along the proposed access road to provide a dry emergency access route to the proposed building during a flood? Seth has on the plan, the FEMA AE, has a specified elevation of 213, I think. And he has good on the ground topo on the same datum, and there's no work proposed below 213 for access or anywhere else. So so the answer in short is that the information's there and there's no work in BLSF.
Seth, am I reading the plan right that the entranceway is about 220 and the building's 220, give or take?
In plain terms, yes. And Paul and I exchanged an email quickly on this. I think DEP did not have the visibility that we all had. They may have thought that the access to the site was actually from the air side towards the brook. They don't realize that the access road goes to Spectacle Pond Road and continues increasing in gradient as it goes up there. So bottom line, that bordering land subject to flooding is absent within our proposed work area, and there's no alteration to bordering land subject to flooding. Plus, we have several feet of offset from bordering land subject to flooding.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure I was reading that right, and we don't appear to be anywhere near it.
Correct.
And that's it. That's all the comments. More, paraphrased a little bit, but not a lot.
Commissioners, any questions? I agree that DEP just didn't have the information. This has gone through so many kind of irradiations of versions that have come through with your work with Green International.
And the comments about restoration, I think that's why we were asking you to quantify the amount, just so we could dot that I, cross that T. But listen, if we were permitting this today, there's no way that this site would exist, but it has existed this way for a long time. So the restoration
certainly will be upgraded. So yeah, okay. Are there any other questions or comments from the commission? If not, if we would like to entertain a motion to close this.
And if I can just add 3 things as far as I can tell, any conditions I've heard are, and this comes from the peer review, provide a signed copy of the O&M before construction, refer to the natural heritage letter. And Paul, unless you feel otherwise, a lot of times I just attach the natural heritage letter. And I
think that makes sense.
Yeah, and I don't know if the commission wanted anything specific for approving basin function when they come in for the certificate of compliance.
And what about the waiver as well?
And yes, you do need a waiver.
Yeah.
There was one other thing that I had mentioned, and it's not that I think we have jurisdiction here, but rather to make sure that the applicant is aware of it. Seth, I think we had talked about water quality issues and the characterization of the groundwater. I'm really going to leave that on you all to sort out. I think what you're doing meets the Wetland Protection Act requirements, but this is my client. I want to know what groundwater I'm taking out to put back in, even understanding that the groundwater in this area is degraded. So take that as you will.
Yeah, that's acknowledged, and we'll continue or complete the appropriate permitting with the Board of Health as well.
So yeah, as Sarah pointed out, I would also need a reason for the waiver to be approved in the vote.
Shall we walk through what that language looks like prior to making the motion?
Seth, do you have the plan that shows the work that's in the 50? I know you said 62% of it is basically restoration, both at the snow push area and the riverfront area. Where's the other 50-foot work doing?
That would be grading for stormwater management, and I'm
That's right.
just flipping to the sheet that actually has the tabulation on it. Okay to share my screen, Amy?
Yep,
Please.
go ahead. Yep. So Seth, if you could tell us what page you're on, because we could reference that in the language for the waiver.
3.1.
Okay.
Top left-hand corner, there's a 50-foot no disturb zone restoration calculation, and that's totaling. I'll zoom in on it for you. The restoration of the plow damage, the riverfront restoration area, which I'm calling the back corner of the site. That's the closest area to the riverfront or the stream. And then we have a separate call out for the grading for the stormwater management area. And that's specifically mitigating the runoff. And that's the runoff from the existing site entrance. So that in itself is an improvement in that. That's just sheet flowing across the site at this point.
And that, excuse me, you may want to reference, that is all within the existing degraded pit limits.
Right.
I appreciate that, Paul. I want to make sure, to the extent the public is ever watching this, that is the fundamental consideration in my mind, that this is already a degraded area. It's just being regraded for stormwater purposes, not modified from a natural state.
Agreed.
And I think in that waiver language, we could just reference sheet C3-1 and call it the restoration plan.
And Paul, I apologize. I looked a lot at your riverfront area restoration. That basin, can that be naturalized seed mix? What's the stabilization there?
For the restoration area?
No, at the basin area.
Oh, the basin. I don't remember what we specify there. I think he's just specifying loam and seed, correct, Seth?
Correct. If you don't object, Paul, we could certainly use New England wetlands plants mix for detention basins, essentially.
Yeah, that I was going to suggest that they have a spec, for stuff that can handle getting its feet wet occasionally.
Yep.
Amy, do you want to put that in the order of conditions, or we just reference that on
the condition that does? You send me what you're going to use ahead of time.
Okay.
So if you need to send it out, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
One condition I want to discuss here, I don't think we need one, but it's worth discussing with the commission. Is there any value in an environmental monitor to take a look at this, given that we're restoring some area in the 50-foot? Or Amy, are you and Tim comfortable handling this just with town staff?
I think we're probably comfortable handling it. Maybe a condition that when you go in to do the snowplow area, you let us know. So we can either come down and watch, or at least we know that piece of work there is happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that's a lot. If someone would like to offer a motion that does include the waiver, that would be fantastic. Who wants to give a stab at it?
No, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, fine. I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing and issue order of conditions for Spectacle Pond Road, Nazi number 204-1007, with the conditions that were just outlined with the applicant, including the approval of a waiver, with the understanding that they're improving the stormwater drainage and control at the site across some previously disturbed land.
And let's reference sheet C3-1, restoration plan.
For the restoration area within the 50-foot, you can reference C3-.1.
Do we have a second?
That.
Thank you, Chase. Okay. Andrew?
Roll call vote. Chase.
Chase Gerbeck, aye.
Michael.
Michael Livingston, aye.
Ed.
And Paul side.
Sarah.
Sarah Seward, aye.
Kyle.
Maxwell, aye.
And myself, aye. It's unanimous.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your time, Mr. Brightmeyer, and good luck.
Yeah, good luck.
Thank you, Commission.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you
Okay.
all. Have a good night.
Thank you. It's now 8:37. Let's go ahead and entertain the 8:20 continued public hearing. Notice of intent for Hartwell Conservation Land, which is Mass DEP 204-1006 R17-5-1 bylaw waiver required, construction of a boardwalk. We did receive comments on this. Amy, you might be best to walk us through this.
Yep, but let me know if you want me to throw up the plans or anything. So, two different reviewers and two different sets of comments. So on the Hartwell Boardwalk, they stated that the placement of material for the boardwalk that sits on the ground are considered impacts to BBW. Replication is required for all impacts from the boardwalks other than helical pilings. The boardwalk should be at least 2 feet off the ground, and include gaps to allow light. So the boardwalk will be elevated the 2 feet, and actually there's ramps at either end, so it's not all happening in wetlands. And the gaps will be as they've been provided in all the other boardwalks, including under the DCR requirements for ADA. The notice and consent had considered the project will reduce about 320 square feet of trampoline compaction with the 44 square feet of the sills. And in order to avoid the need for water quality certificate, that 44 square feet of which I chose to put in quotations impact, a minimum of 44 square feet of wetland replication will be provided. And Sam Bell has offered that he can get his backhoe in there very easily to scrape out 6 to 12 inches of the area on the western end of the boardwalk, which is just open canopy under some trees. So we won't have to do any tree cutting. And then we can use the New England Wetland Plants wet mix to reseed it. And then and that would be monitored for 2 years. And I had in there recommendations for the order of conditions, that the work area should be monitored for a period of 2 years following completion of the boardwalk and spreading of the seed mix. Monitoring report shall occur at the end of each of the 2 growing seasons and shall be submitted by November 1st of that year. The monitoring report shall include photographs and discussion of additional restoration efforts that may be needed. So that's kind of the standard language. Their other comment was that the commission refrained from issuing an order until Natural Heritage has provided their written determination, which they did, and they said that it was a no take and no conditions.
Okay. That was generous of Sam Bell as well. Okay.
Very yes.
Commissioners, any questions? I thought the way it was presented was, it was helpful for me to kind of read what the thoughts were, what the rebuttal to those were. So thank you for that presentation. Any other discussions? If not, and so bylaw waiver?
Yes, for protection of the wetlands as well as the public access.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anyone that would like to entertain a motion?
Come on.
I'll move that we close the public hearing and issue an order of conditions for Hartwell Conservation Land, Mass DEP file number 2041006.
And waiver,
Second.
please.
With the
And
waiver.
waiver.
And issue a waiver associated with the NOI.
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Let's see. Chase,
Chase Gerbig, aye.
Michael,
Michael Livingston, aye.
Ed,
And both sides.
Sarah,
Sarah Seward, aye.
Kyle,
Maxfield, aye.
and myself, I. It's unanimous.
Right, so it is 8:41. We're going to open the 8:21 continued public hearing, notice of intent, Long Lake Park, 11 Queen Road, CEP 201005 U15-4-U, and then also U24-3-0, bylaw waiver required, construction of a boardwalk, and then we have comments that Amy has submitted as well. Amy, I turn it to you.
Okay, thank you. Yep, so similarly, we are just waiting for DEP comments. Their first comment was that recommend that the commission consider incorporating restoration and monitoring protocols. So I'm going to paraphrase here, such as the application of native wetland plant and seed mix and monitoring 2 growing seasons. I said basically, yes, the boardwalk is generally built in a linear fashion. So you're not necessarily impacting the sides, you build as you go. That said, there could be some trampling on the sides and stuff. So in any of those areas and or where the trail has gotten so wide as people avoid mud, similar to Hartwell, I would recommend the condition that the work area be monitored for a period of 2 years, following completion of the boardwalk and spreading of the seed mix, which would be the same wetland seed mix. Monitoring report shall occur at the end of each of 2 growing seasons and shall be submitted by November 1st of the year. Monitoring report shall include photographs and discussion of additional restoration efforts that may be needed. Their second comment was a good catch. They said that the 100-year floodplain appears to exist at the location of the proposed boardwalk. We should determine the extent of the base flood and if the boardwalk will impact it. We measured and oriented as best we could where the trail is, and it looks to be outside of the floodplain where the boardwalk's going to be. But even if the boardwalk is in the floodplain, the 4x4 footings would provide de minimis displacement and allow for unobstructed flow. So there would no be impact to boarding lanes of flooding. And then, oh yeah, this was the fun. And their third comment was that the project is not exempt from Massachusetts stormwater standards, and they wanted to go through the 10 conditions checklist of the stormwater report. They didn't ask for the entire report, just suggested going through the 10 of them. Do you want me to go through the 10 of them?
No, I think you submitted that, so I think they're just making you go through this exercise, but you did a great job explaining that.
What on earth, Amy, was their basis for why it's not exempt from the standards?
As you can tell, because this comment did not come up in the other one, it varied widely from reviewer to reviewer.
Right.
But everyone generally agrees this is not an impervious structure, impervious area. So stormwater is moot.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out. But
so it's just spelling it all out, holding it to the standard. So,
but in any case, what you did was, rather than fight the applicability, just here's how it meets all the standards.
Right. Yeah,
Okay.
I thought it was weird. They
Went
like,
through the exercise and documented it. Yep.
Right. I've never
Very
seen
well.
enough just say, "Hey, go through a checklist instead of report." It's funny how they made you pick and choose. We don't.
Right.
I don't agree that your stormwater is exempt, but just do these 10 questions instead of a full report. Like,
Yep.
I don't know how you get away with just that, but
make everybody happy. Yeah.
Right. Okay. With that said, do we have any discussion on this or the waiver?
I had a quick question. I know maybe Michael brought it up that the Appleman runs through there. Was that ever researched? I know it was actually this
I've
past
checked
week.
it. It starts at the beach and goes the other direction. So they will not be tromping through there.
That sounds like my sense of direction.
But I want you to know, Tim, you freaked out, Tim.
All the
Sounds like
arrows on the
most of that
street.
thing.
You know what we should have done is we should have had Tim run it, and then he could definitively say what route they take.
There you
Want
go.
them to use chalk on the pavement next time, not spray paint. Oh, all the arrows.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have motion to close and to issue the order?
Move that we close the public hearing, issue an order of conditions under the wetland bylaw for 11 Queen Road, construction of a boardwalk, Mass DEP file number 2041005.
With the waiver, please.
With the waiver.
Second.
Sarah got it.
Got it.
Roll call vote. Chase.
Chase Gervais guy.
Michael.
Michael Livingston, aye.
Ed.
Ed Foltz, aye.
Sarah.
Sarah Seward, aye.
Kyle.
Kyle Maxwell, aye.
And myself, aye. It's unanimous.
Okay, let's go back to, we've got two discussion, one site walk for a boathouse.
Yes. So, you had voted, I don't know, a little while ago that in that neighborhood, if someone needs to cut down up to 4 basically dead hemlocks, that I can approve it. If it's more than 4, a commissioner should look. The folks at Boathouse, they have 6 dead hemlocks. So would someone like to take a walk out there with me sometime?
Sure.
On a pretty day.
I'm pretty flexible.
All right, I will coordinate with you, Michael, offline. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Have you been
Mine
down?
was just,
That's okay.
and then the other discussion item was just NAGOG. I'd like to put it on for the next agenda as a discussion item for our orchard and dysfunctional working group. Thank you. Anyone else have anything this evening?
There are a couple of
Mullins rule up there. Yeah, we skipped over a couple, right?
Did we?
the MACC
Yeah.
hand.
Did we do Ivy?
We did Ivy.
That's where we stopped.
Okay. MAPC e-handbook.
I think I got Sarah and Michael won it. Nobody else does. I assume that is correct, and then I will just go ahead and. Sounds good.
Let me revise that. Amy, could you add me to that list too?
Yeah, that's easy.
Yeah, I know I did it last year. I didn't touch it. I looked back. I might have looked through it once. I don't know if it's worth.
Amy, is it possible to get like one and then share the password to it, or do they block us?
We have that discussion every year.
They don't like it. And I figure $8 at supporting MACC. And actually, I get my membership out of Acton, so I make them pay for me. So we're not doing too bad.
Okay. Mullen rule signatures.
Yes, actually, everybody got me their signatures, which is why you all could vote on everything. We're all caught up on that.
All right.
Maybe one other question. So as we were going through the agenda, I scrolled down to the continue to later date. Are those dates on there? The up to date dates where it's continued to blah blah blah. The applicant's request.
August 6th and August 20th. Is that what you mean?
I'm looking at the September 10th for Healy Corner. I know that I actually saw Dillis and Roy at that site last week, so I imagine they are doing something. But it's going to come back to me where I just hope we're not wasting a meeting of them coming in for us to determine start over if they're not already starting over.
I talk monthly on this, and because they were doing tonight, the last several months I think we're really close. And I said, well, why don't you just withdraw and start over again? And I think that's maybe where they are when they have to come in. Nobody can vote on this anymore, I don't think.
Kyle, I think that, and we've talked about it, I think they're still going to end up potentially coming in, and we're just like, yes, it's nice to see you, but you have to start from scratch.
They want to waste their time, I guess.
Right. They can do it the easy way or the hard way, but the outcome is going to be the same.
Yeah, I'm just trying to be a little proactive here and not waste.
Yeah, no, and Amy has
as long as we've
I talked to Amy about this months ago. Yeah, so that's
almost. So yeah,
certainly their prerogative.
And
It was
35
one of the
Queen,
first projects that came in when I started.
35 Queen pushed way out. So I'm not too sure they're actually going to come in August 20th for 35 Queen or not, but they got a little longer to wait.
There's also an enforcement order for 10 Ivies on that list. But we had,
Oh, yes, that enforcement order I hadn't issued the release yet until they had the certificate of compliance.
Okay.
So I can issue them both at the same time.
Amy, we do have, as we get down to the bottom of this, the water department Wickham Ave site that's continued to the 6th. Do we anticipate them actually coming in on the 6th, or is that just an administrative kicking the can down the road?
No, I think they were going to come in tonight. They're waiting for Natural Heritage.
Okay.
Right.
And I think they're very close because they have the turtle nesting, issue that they're going through with them. So Corey felt pretty good about August 6th.
Okay.
Put it that way.
Could you, if they are coming in on the 6th, Amy, potentially ask Corey or whoever's coming to be prepared to give us just a couple-minute update on the King Street site and so on as well? Just status update. Where are we? What's the plan? How are things going?
I'll put it on the agenda. All right. And then the other thing I had on there was all the conservation restrictions. I actually only had that on for Hager. If I put the others on there, Hager, Homestead, is so close. So can you see my screen? Yes. This was originally the plan that was going to be in the CR, and you see these 2 boardwalks that they had put on basically as a place saver. They weren't required to build up by anybody, but they might want to. But town council noticed that this boardwalk is just barely in the easement. So basically, last time I talked to Bruce Ringwald, he's like, fine, we'll just take them off. So I was like, fine, take them off. They are allowed to build boardwalks under the CR. They don't have to show anything on the map that they're not doing. So the current plan, and that was a pretty nice looking plan. Second here.
Oh, they just cut it. Right?
Here it is.
No, I think you just had it, Amy.
Oh yeah, I'm lost again. I got so many.
No, you had it. It just showed a gap that they had cut it.
Try that again. When I start doing this, I can't see you guys anymore. I think this is it.
That's okay. We're still here.
Plan. A little less well defined than the old plan. The same information is there, but the boardwalks have been removed.
Right. Yeah, they just cut it right out.
The only reason I'm here is because Ryan Ferreira said, why aren't they building the boardwalks they're supposed to? And then he went on vacation. So he's not supposed to, but I'll run it by the commission. So I just want to make sure none of you object to this. The only other thing that I think has changed in the CR over the last, 6-12 months is that bicycles have to be walked through there. And so that is now part of the CR. Because of bicycle pedestrian conflicts.
Right.
What
How
a
wide is
freaking
that?
pointless requirement. Okay.
Well, I told Bruce.
It can't be. I mean, I don't know who's going to enforce it.
Who enforces that crap?
How wide is that path?
I'm going to get a tree house built outside here where I can overlook it. And that's my retirement. I'm going to sit there with a pair of binoculars. Yell at the kids.
Binoculars and a paint gun.
We've talked about this with other ones too. Yeah, we're going to put a sign somewhere or other. It's like, who's going to enforce it? Why bother?
But just out of curiosity, how wide is that path? Ballpark.
I think the entire width is like maybe, I'm going to say 8 feet. Somewhere in there.
No conflict.
It's the existing trail out there. Existing, road. So I don't think I actually need a vote unless anybody has an objection to changing the plan.
I just want to make sure I understand this correctly, Amy. The removal of the boardwalks from the drawing doesn't remove anyone's responsibility to construct the boardwalks because no one had responsibility to construct the boardwalks.
Wow.
Exactly.
Right.
But if they want to build a boardwalk, they can. They would need to come to us as the holder of the CR.
Okay. So we're not giving anything up by revising the drawing. Okay.
No.
Carry on.
But what, I guess this just is confusing because ultimately down the road, someone comes across these plans and they're like, oh, look, there's a boardwalk. Or, oh,
Well, that's-
there's not a boardwalk anymore.
That's why we're changing the plan. But as with every CR, one of the reserved rights is to put up, signs, kiosks, fences, boardwalks with approval of the CR holder of the grantor.
And I apologize, I should remember this. Who's holding the CR? We are?
We are.
Okay.
So holding a CR on private land, and then there's a separate easement so people can walk from town hall over to, what is that, 330, to the playground, which will need a boardwalk. I'm not building it.
Is it pretty wet out there in the spring though? Walking across the field, it's been a long time since I've been on site.
There are basically elevated bermed trails through there. If you get off of any of the existing old roads, or I don't know what they are, it's super wet.
Do you remember when we walked back there that truck had just gotten stuck back there on one of the sidewalks?
Huge mess back there.
Yeah, the way back is super wet.
Yes.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. Are you requesting a vote or just for general knowledge, Amy?
I'm just letting you know, and if someone objects, let me know and we can get into it, but otherwise it's just letting you know.
Okay.
And eventually I'm going to start the CR for Webster.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if anybody wants to be in on that or just react to it.
Chase does.
Okay, Chase.
Don't give Chase things. He owes me tree policy comments, so don't give him anything else.
Yes.
Can't hide.
That was his baby anyway, so.
I'm happy to help, but I'm not sure it needs a lot of help. So
I think it's going to be, I'm hoping it'll be pretty straight boilerplate, but you never know when you get into it.
And we're holding that one as well?
LCT will hold that one because we own the property. LCT will hold the CR.
Good.
And we have money at CPC. Thank you, Andrew, for to pay for someone to do the baseline documentation report, which could be a little interesting because there's, archaeological stuff that should be mentioned, and there's a lot of properties along Crane. So it's just documentation.
And Amy, I'm happy to help you with anything CR related on that as well.
Done. Okay, yes.
Chase no longer has an obligation.
love you, Andrew. Thank you.
No problem.
Chase, I thought
Okay.
you would want to follow it all the way to the bitter end.
All right. Any other discussions? Good luck on, we got the one site walk. Amy, it might be helpful just to send a reminder to everyone. So there were, Carl is not with us in case he can join. And then Andrew, you and I can try and circle around for anyone that wasn't able to make that one.
That'd be great.
So without further ado, would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
Move that we adjourn
At 8:57.
at
Do we have a
8:57.
second? Anyone want to second it?
Second.
Andrew, roll call.
Roll call vote. Michael,
Michael Livingston, aye.
Ed,
Ed Foltz, aye.
Sarah,
Sarah Seward, aye.
Kyle,
That's good. Bye.
Chase,
Chase Gerber guy.
and myself. It's unanimous. We're adjourned.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great week.
All right.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.